Hey, it's Tandy from Alaska Homestead Academy, and today we're going to be talking about milk kefir, and I am really excited about this class because milk kefir, I believe, is one of those lesser known superfoods that it's so incredibly simple, and it's sustainable, and it doesn't hardly cost anything to make, and it's crazy good for you, and everyone loves it. It's super easy to make. It taste amazing. So we're going to talk about milk kefir today, and I hope by the end of this class you're as excited about it as I am. But the first thing I want to talk about is just what exactly is milk kefir. So here is a quart jar of milk kefir that I started yesterday. You can see it pretty much just looks like a jar of milk. It's a little thick, but it's not super thick like a yogurt would be. But kefir is similar to yogurt in a lot of ways. However, what you're doing with yogurt, you actually would put yogurt cultures in it, and you would culture the yogurt. The milk kefir grains, which I'm going to show you in just a minute what they look like because they're a little crazy, those are actually a form of a SCOBY. And if you've heard of a SCOBY before, that's likely been in reference to a kombucha or a Jun SCOBY. We make a lot of Jun around here, and so that's probably when you've heard of a SCOBY. These look nothing like a kombucha or a Jun SCOBY either. It's kind of fun. They're called grains, and again, I'll show you what they look like in just a few minutes. So, what's different about these is with yogurt, when you make yogurt, you put the culture in the yogurt, you stir it in. I actually put my dehydrator, I'm able to set at the right temperature, and I make a gallon at a time. And so I just put the whole gallon in my dehydrator. It dehydrates overnight. It comes back out. The yogurt stays in the culture stays in the yogurt. With kefir grains, you're constantly taking that culture or the SCOBY out, the grains out, and you're reusing them. What's really fun is these grains will keep growing. So as they grow and as you get too many for your just daily quart that you need, then you can do a couple things with them. You can keep them for yourself and make a whole separate batch. So you can drink your daily kefir, and your separate batch you can use for making cheeses, because this actually can work as a cheese culture. It has the monophilic and the mesophilic cultures in there for making cheese. So that's super fun. We'll definitely delve into that later in this whole cultured milk course that we're doing. But the other thing you can do is you can share them with friends, and how fun to think that you are able to keep this culture basically going, and that you're able to pass it on to other people. And I just love, we have this farm here, and one thing that I see in the wintertime is people will tag us and they'll say, oh, we're enjoying our honeyberries that we picked out at Common Ground, Alaska this summer. It makes me think of summer or whatever. And it's just so neat to think that in people's freezer or in their pantries are foods that we that we grew or that we shared, and to help participate in the health of these families. So it's really an honor. It's a lot of fun. You can either keep your grains and do all sorts of fun and creative things with them, or you can share them, or both, because you're going to end up with a lot of grains if you keep this going for a long time. There are some health claims that are made with milk kefir. Here's the thing. We always have to say this. I'm not making these claims. I'm not claiming that if you drink milk kefir, these things will happen. These are just studies that have been done. These are true life experiences that have happened. So just keep that filter as you're hearing these. But there are things that milk kefir has been known to help with. It's been known to help to lower blood pressure and cholesterol. It's known to help prevent certain kinds of cancer. It can help improve digestion, improve your immune system, or boost your immune system. And it has actually there's been studies where ingested milk kefir has helped with asthma and allergies. Milk kefir has kind of a cool history that we're going to talk about in just a second. And it actually helped with tuberculosis, if you can believe that. So let's talk for a quick minute about the history of kefir, and then I'm going to show you how to make milk kefir. So in ancient history, kefir grains were passed down for generations, and they were kept very much to the culture that they had started. In the northern Caucasus region, near Russia, they had a closely guarded secret, and their closely guarded secret was that they had kefir grains. No one knows exactly where they originated. Some say that they got them as a gift from Muhammad. There's all sorts of lore around it, but the history really starts with these folks in this Caucasus region that had these kefir grains, and they were ingesting kefir regularly. So they were also known for their longevity. As a matter of fact, in that area, in that whole region, they lived longer. Being a centurion was no big surprise for folks in their region. They just were known to live longer. And so as people were studying them and trying to figure out exactly how they were able to do this, the one factor that they had different was that they had these kefir grains. Well, they were not willing to share the kefir grains with anyone. So a Russian doctor really desperately wanted some of these kefir grains, and he was willing to go to take any measure to get a hold of some. So he hired a spy, a beautiful female spy, and he sent her into this Caucasus camp, and her whole purpose was to leave the camp with some grains, whatever it took. He just said, whatever you can do to separate these people from their grains so we can have some. They didn't want all of them, but they just wanted a handful so they could study them and figure out how to create more. And they just wanted to know more about these kefir grains because it was such a closely guarded secret. The spy's name was Irina, and she was up for the task. So she went into their community and did her best to win the favor of the prince, the local prince. Well, she did a good job of it. He fell in love with her, and he wanted nothing more than to marry her. And so she said that all she wanted was that she wanted some grains. And he said, no, you can have grains, but you can have all these other things. But the grains were closely guarded. No way was she going to get her hands on any of these kefir grains. So she left, and he went and got her and brought her back. And she didn't want to be there anymore. So she caused kind of a big ruckus, and it got the attention of the Tsar. And the Tsar came in and he said, okay, something's got to give here. Can't be having all this. And the poor prince just said, listen, I want to marry her and I'll give her whatever she wants. She just can't have the kefir grains. And the Tsar said, well, that's exactly what she wants. So you're going to have to give them to her. Eventually the prince relented. There were some kefir grains given to Irina. She left the poor prince brokenhearted, left with her grains. Her mission was accomplished, but the poor prince, he didn't get anything out of the deal, and he lost some of his grains. So at that point, this was in the early 1900s, and at that point, the doctor got this doctor that wanted a team of doctors who wanted these grains so badly. They now had the grains in their possession, and they were able to start working with them. And that's really how they started being spread across the world. But they didn't really take off actually until recently. There was kind of a surge of them in the 70s, a little bit. And then after that, there really wasn't much that was happening until recently. Now, the really fun thing about these grains is these have to be part of the original grains that are as old as 4,000 years old. There were some old kefir grains found in a tomb that's 4,000 years old. So these are old grains. But we can't create these grains. We have no idea how they were made. They remake themselves, but humanity has not figured out how to redo them. Isn't that crazy? So these grains are part of those ancient kefir grains from years ago. So I just had to kind of share that fun history because I think that's really neat. Let's talk for a little bit more about kefir really quick. So kefir has significantly less lactose than fresh milk because of the fermentation, so it's much, much easier to digest. Another historical factor is that they'd use a goat skin, and they'd hang right inside the door. They'd fill the goat skin with milk and have these kefir grains in there. And so every time you'd walk in or out the door, you'd just kind of move the goat skin, and that would kind of shake things up inside. And that was their kind of natural way of going about keeping this moving. So when you have your kefir grains, it's really good to shake them up just a couple times during the day, just keep things moving, and it kind of keeps that fermentation happening. The name kefir in Turkish means good thing. So I think that was kind of a fun little tidbit too. Let's show you how to care for and create new kefir grains. Now this would just be, for me, this is just a daily, every morning, this is kind of what we do. So what you would do is you would just take your jar of kefir that's been fermenting overnight. Now this would sit out at room temperature, and you want it to be, you need to let it sit for about 24 hours. This didn't quite sit for 24 hours, so it's not quite as thick as it normally is. And so normally it's thick a little, it's not quite as thick as yogurt, but it's definitely thicker than milk. But it's also a little bit effervescent. Sometimes you might see little bubbles in there, and that's really good. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna simply have a little mesh, a wire mesh strainer, and you're gonna pour your finished kefir into a new jar. Now you can just let that sit for just a few minutes and just finish straining. But then these are the kefir grains that you have left. And these are what you're going to use to make your next batch of kefir. Mm-hmm. Here are the kefir grains. These are how they come out of the kefir. They're kind of covered in milk. Now I'm going to rinse them just so you can see exactly what they look like without being covered in any milk. Okay, so they look kind of like popcorn kernels almost or something, but these are your kefir grains, and you're going to have big clumps and you're going to have small clumps, but these are going to grow. So over time, you might start with a tablespoon or two in your container, but over time, you're going to end up with several tablespoons, and you're going to need to divide and either give them away or create a separate batch for kefir. So I just let this sit in and strain for a little bit, and then when it looks like it's pretty much strained, then I'm going to pour okay, when it looks like it's pretty much strained out, then I'm actually going to pour the grains back in here. I'm going to set this to the side, and I'm actually going to fill this with more milk. Now this is going to be culturing until tomorrow, and then I'll have a whole brand new fresh bit of kefir. So now that you've seen the process, it's a quick strain and a quick refill. You need to think about how much kefir you think you can drink in a day. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to have a kefir shake every day. We have so many fresh berries in the freezer and so much good stuff that I want to include this kefir in my diet every single day. So we're able to use a quart, and the way that I make a shake is I literally just pour this kefir in the blender. I throw some berries in. I might throw some honey. Like if we use honey berries, then I might throw some honey or something in there to sweeten it a little bit. And then that's it. And we just whip it up and we drink it, and it's really, really good and so nutrient dense. And it's just an excellent, it's another excellent snack. So, but you can also use this kefir in place of yogurt in any recipe. Remember, if it's a little thin, then you might need to reduce your other liquids in the recipe, but like in muffins and things like that sometimes take yogurt, you can use kefir in its place. You can use it as a culture in cheese, which we're going to get into this winter. That's going to be really fun when we get into do some cheese making on the Academy. And you can use kefir in the place of sour cream. So this is kind of funny. I did this a while back because it has almost a sourish flavor. It wouldn't really work on tacos, right? But I was making stroganoff, and I realized I was out of sour cream. What I thought was sour cream was cottage cheese in my refrigerator, and that doesn't work. And so I had a milk kefir going in there, and I thought, I wonder if it'll work. And it did. It was excellent. So you can also use it in place of sour cream in some things, and it's going to be a lot more nutrient dense than your store-bought sour cream for sure. So another thing to know about milk kefir is you can use any milk. It can be raw milk. It can be pasteurized. It can be homogenized. It can be goat milk. It can be sheep, cow. I don't know if you can use it with non-dairy, like with almond milk and stuff like that. I don't know if it would work with that, but just about any milk. So you can use store-bought milk. You can use fresh milk. One thing to remember is the fresher the milk, the nicer your kefir is going to turn out. So there you go. That is how you make milk kefir.